Hi, and welcome to today's Daily Chronicle. Today is Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. The Agriculture Secretary says SNAP changes are coming. Here's what to know. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins is promising big changes to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, which currently helps almost 42 million Americans to buy groceries. In recent media appearances, she said attention on SNAP during the government shutdown has given us a platform to completely deconstruct the program, and said details about structural changes to the program would be released this week. Rollins has made a case for sweeping changes to SNAP by asserting her agency uncovered massive fraud in state data the agency demanded, and has emphasized statistics suggesting wrongdoings without providing the underlying data or details. The Trump administration's latest campaign for SNAP changes comes as millions of recipients are already poised to lose benefits in the coming years as states begin to implement new work requirements and eligibility rules that Republicans in Congress passed over the summer that are the deepest cuts in history to the program. In Fox Business interviews the last month, Rollins said the further changes she is proposing will make sure those vulnerable Americans who really need that benefit are going to get it. And for the rest of the fraudsters and the people who are corrupt and taking advantage of it, we're going to protect the taxpayer too. Food policy experts say they are concerned that Rollins' taking points suggest a distorted view of the prevalence of SNAP recipients committing fraud, and seem to conflate fraud with payment errors of any kind. My worry is that she's risking setting a public narrative that this is a program that has more fraud than it actually does, or that people who need it and use it to meet their basic food needs are somehow committing a crime by seeking food assistance, says Stacy Dean, Executive Director of George Washington University's Global Food Institute and a former U.S. Department of Agriculture official during the Biden administration. And it's not good for the program. It's absolutely terrible for the people who need it, Dean said. Comments Rollins made in recent weeks that everyone on SNAP would have to reapply sparked confusion among SNAP recipients. State officials and food policy experts, SNAP recipients already have to go through a recertification process, in most cases every 6 or 12 months, and it is unclear what legal authority USDA would have to add additional steps. A group of Democratic U.S. senators sent a letter last month to Rollins to clarify what she meant, and pointed out that SNAP is facing unprecedented cuts and that there is additional uncertainty after the Trump administration halted SNAP benefits during the shutdown. We are therefore troubled by the administration could choose at this moment to add additional red tape that creates duplicative and unnecessary barriers to accessing nutrition assistance for families. The letter reads, USDA officials are seemingly walking back the suggestion that there will be a new reapplication process for SNAP recipients. A statement from the agency indicates that it plans to use existing recertification protocols. Secretary Rollins wants to ensure the fraud, waste, and innocent abuse of SNAP ends. Rates of fraud were only previously assumed, and President Trump is doing something about it, reads a statement from a USDA spokesperson. Using standard recertification processes for households is a part of that work, as well as ongoing analysis of state data, further regulatory work, and improved collaboration with states. Unpacking Rollins' claims. Earlier this year, the USDA made an unprecedented demand to states to turn over personal data of SNAP recipients. Most Democratic-led states refused, and for a federal judge in San Francisco blocked USDA from withholding funding from states that did not comply and found the federal agency's data demand was likely unlawful. But 28 states and Guam did turn over the data, according to a USDA spokesperson. And Rollins has been citing statistics from that data and several media appearances in recent weeks as evidence that the food assistance program needs to be overhauled. In recent News Nation interviews, Rollins said the state data showed that 186,000 dead people receiving benefits, 500,000 Americans receiving benefits 2 times, so double that they should be receiving. We've arrested more than 120 people with SNAP fraud, Rollins said. And that doesn't include most of the blue states, where we believe there's even more fraud and abuse. And under the last administration, the SNAP benefits increased 40%. So clearly there's a right sizing that needs to happen. The USDA has not presented data to back these statistics, which makes it harder to evaluate their significance. For example, some deceased individuals will inevitably be enrolled in the program because state officials have to verify the death and provide time for the household to respond before SNAP benefits are reduced or terminated. Households that erroneously receive payments when someone is deceased must pay that money back. As for people receiving 2 benefit payments, the specifics of the case Rollins cited are still unknown. But in court filings, a California state official listed a number of legitimate explanations for why that can occur, including when a SNAP household is owed a supplemental payment to correct an error. It is also unclear what Rollins means when she says SNAP benefits increased 40% under the Biden administration. USDA did not respond to a question seeking clarification. The department announced the SNAP benefits would expand 40% due to the pandemic in April 2020 during President Trump's first term. Lauren Bauer, a fellow economic studies at the Brookings Institution and associate director of the Hamilton Project, analyzed USDA data but was unable to find evidence of a 40% increase under Biden. Instead, she found that during Trump's presidency, benefit costs increased by more than 30%, while during Biden's term, they decreased by almost 17%. The dynamics of benefit increases and decreases is not really about presidencies. It's about the business cycle and where we are in terms of recession and in terms of the climb out of it, Bauer said. More SNAP changes to come. A draft of regulation that the USDA submitted to the Office of Management and Budget last month could provide a clue for one of the changes to SNAP the Trump administration could unveil soon. The draft calls for narrowing what is known as broad-based categorical eligibility for SNAP, which is currently used by more than 40 states to ensure welfare recipients can receive SNAP. Researchers at the conservative-leaning American Enterprise Institute have argued this eligibility rule should be ended because states are using it to allow people with incomes above the limit set by SNAP to statute to receive the benefit. Though they are also cautioned that eliminating broad-based categorical eligibility must be done in a way that addresses benefit cliffs that could de-incentivize people from earning slightly more because they would lose benefits and become worse off. Katie Berg, a senior policy analyst at the Liberal Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, who has criticized the potential change, estimates a policy change like this could lead to nearly 6 million people losing SNAP benefits. At every opportunity, the administration is seeking additional ways to attack anti-hunger programs, Berg said. An independent effort says AI is the secret to topple two-party power in Congress. The independent censor is using AI to identify congressional districts where independent candidates could win over the Democratic or Republican candidate. Its goal is to elect at least a handful of independents to disrupt the two-party system on Capitol Hill. The rise of AI assistance is rewriting the rhythms of everyday life. People are feeding their blood test results into chatbots, turning to ChatGPT for advice on their love lives. And leaning on AI on everything from planning trips to finishing homework assignments. Now, one organization suggests artificial intelligence can go beyond making daily life more convenient. It says it's the key to reshaping American politics. Without AI, what we're trying to do would be impossible, explained Adam Brandon, a senior advisor at the Independent Center, a nonprofit that studies and engages with independent voters. The goal is to elect a handful of independent candidates to the House of Representatives in 2026, using AI to identify districts where independents could succeed and uncover diamond in the rough candidates. In a time when control of the House balances on a knife's edge, winning even a handful of seats could deny either party from getting a majority and upend the way the House currently operates. It's a bold proposition in a system that hasn't seen a new independent candidate win a House seat in 35 years. But data shows a rise in moderate and independent voters. Gallup found 43% of Americans, a record high, claiming the independent label in 2024. Exit polls that year showed 34% of voters identified as independent, up from 26% in 2020. There's a huge chunk of people who, for different reasons, can't stomach either of the two parties, says David Barker, a professor of government at American University. It's the first time in a long time where a plurality of Americans are now identifying as independents, and so that does seem to signal a pretty important shift. Brandon said that shift is what makes the time right to disrupt the status quo. It's like Uber and taxis. You had a system with an obvious flaw that had entrenched operators and took radical change to go completely around it. He told NPR, and that's what we're feeling now. People are so stuck into Republican and Democrat, and we're like, well, there's something else. We're political fighters, trying to throw a wrench into the stranglehold of a two-party system in an uphill battle, pushing against political orthodoxy and plenty of skeptics. But the independent center strategists are a far cry from political newbies. We're political fighters, said Brandon, who served as president of FreedomWorks, the conservative grassroots group that helped turn Tea Party activists into a political force before closing its doors last year. We have built a team of people that know how to do this. We're not going to be pushovers. Brandon works closely with Brett Lloyd, who runs the Bullfinch Group, the nonpartisan polling and data firm overseeing the polling and research at the Independent Center. He previously worked on President Trump's polling team when the president was a candidate. We're political fighters, trying to throw a wrench into the stranglehold of the two-party system is an uphill battle. We're political fighters, said Brandon, who served as president of Freedom Works, the conservative grassroots group that helped turn Tea Party activists into a political force before closing its doors last year. We have built a team of people that know how to do this. We're not going to be pushovers. Brandon works closely with Brett Lloyd, who runs the Bullfinch Group, the nonpartisan polling and data firm overseeing the polling and research at the Independent Center. He previously worked on the President Trump's polling team when the president was a candidate. Brandon works closely with Brett Lloyd, who runs the Bullfinch Group, the nonpartisan polling and data firm overseeing the polling and research at the Independent Center. He previously worked on President Trump's polling team when the president was a candidate. I'm a statistician. I kind of joke that I work for the RNC because they offered me a job before the DNC, he said with a smile. My job is numbers and sentiment and game theory. It's not necessarily Republican or Democratic. He makes it clear the goal of their work is to erase bipartisanship altogether. This isn't going to work everywhere. It's going to work in very specific areas, Lloyd said. If you live in a hyper-Republican or hyper-Democratic district, you should have a Democrat or Republican representing you. But with the help of AI, he's identified 40 seats that don't fit that mold, where he says independents can make inroads with voters fed up with both parties. The Independent Center plans to have about 10 candidates in place by spring, with the goal of winning at least half of the races. Brandon predicts those wins could prompt moderate partisans in the House to switch affiliations. I had one Republican member tell me in his office I'm too chicken to do this right now, he recalled. But if you can do this, I will join you. From mining Reddit to matching on LinkedIn. The proprietary AI tool created by an outside partner has been years in the making. While focus groups and polling have long driven an understanding of American sentiments, AI can monitor what people are talking about in real time. Polling is a snapshot in time, a Tuesday at 11 when you got the phone call or you were at the focus group. This is how you felt. But when you went home and your views changed, we can watch that. Brandon said, they're using AI to understand core issues and concerns of voters and to hunt for districts ripe for an independent candidate to swoop in. A district that's 50% Republican and 50% Democratic, that keeps flipping because of who showed up on a given night, is that something that is truly independent versus a district in Arizona. Where plurality is independent, but where they're plugging their nose and voting. Lloyd explained, we're looking at voter participation rates, where districts have really low turnout because those people aren't excited to go to the ballot box. He's also looking at districts with younger voters, who said, embrace the independent message. When I say Gen Z and millennials, people keep rolling their eyes and they're like, the kids, he said. Well, those kids are going to be more than half the electorate in the next presidential election. From there, the next step is taking the data and finding out what the dream candidate looks like. The Independent Center is recruiting candidates, both from people who reach out to the organization directly and with the help of AI. They can even run their data through LinkedIn to identify potential candidates with certain interests and career and volunteer history. Usually, they're not self-promoting, but their actions leave a footprint. Lloyd said, giving the example of someone volunteering at an event covered by the local paper. We ask our AI to find that footprint. The AI also informs where a candidate is best placed to win. Brandon points to one instance where a candidate was poised to run in their home district. The AI showed the district next door is a better bet. 30 minutes away, perfect fit, he said. And that's what that person's going to do, because we found they matched up perfectly. What's wrong with spoiling something people don't like? One criticism Brandon and Lloyd acknowledge they hear often is the idea of spoilers. Non-winning candidates whose presence on the ballot affects which candidate wins. It's a partisan, archaic line. Lloyd said, what's wrong with spoiling something people don't like? He said, The people criticizing independents getting into races as spoilers have entrenched interest in the current system. The Republican and Democratic establishments still live in a world that's binary. It's Coke or Pepsi, it's Ford or Chevy, it's MSNBC or Fox News. He said, that works for people that watch MSNBC and Fox News. Everybody else, we don't live in that binary system anymore. Brandon said the only thing is to lean in. We're going to embrace the spoiler because what we're spoiling is a pretty corrupt system.